The stock market is something we can't control, but that's okay. Over time, the stock market we expect will do well. Over the near term and going forward, if we just focus on controlling 5 things, that will make us much better off financially. The first thing to control is you can contribute to some kind of retirement fund, or even if it's not a retirement fund, just a regular taxable account. What happens is when you start getting into a good habit of contributing before you receive your income, you won't miss your income because it doesn't become a part of your spending equation. Do you save first and then spend, or do you spend first and then save what's left over? I think if you go with the latter process, you're going to find quite often that you're not going to have anything left over. So that's why we save first, then spend, as opposed to spend, then save. So the second thing is to create an emergency fund. Look, everyone needs an emergency fund because stuff happens. As a branch manager of mine used to say, it takes a long time for good stuff to happen, but bad stuff happens fast. And when it happens fast, like a sudden loss of a job, and you realize, well, I didn't save any money, or I don't have any money set aside. I figured I would get to it one day, but I'm spending on this project and that project and this thing and that thing. I'll get to it one day. And all of a sudden you need it. That's why it's called an emergency fund, because you need to have 3 to 6 months of emergency money. The next one is to keep your expenses low. Now, there are 2 kinds of expenses I'm referring to. One is investment expenses. Obviously for me, for my clients, I use low cost expense ratio type investments. For example, I use individual stocks a lot. They don't have any expense ratio because they're not funds. And I use a lot of ETFs, and they're pretty inexpensive at this point. It's almost like nothing. It's not nothing, but it's very low for a lot of them. And then you want to keep your personal expenses, what's called lifestyle creep, where all of a sudden you've got your expensive cell phone bill, your Netflix, your Hulu, your Roku, and your nicer car, and all of these things that start to add up. It pays to get back to basics once in a while and run through all your credit card statements and see what monthly expenses are coming out. The next one is financial goals. Only you could really set your financial goals. I mean, you could work with a financial advisor, but you still have to come up with your own goals, because if you have a goal that someone gives you, or someone tells you about it and convinces you at the moment that it's a good goal, you might not really buy into it over the long term. And if you're not really passionate about a goal, you're probably not going to stick with it. So I like to just keep it simple, focus on 3 goals, no more than 3 goals at a time, and hit those very well. Typical goals, saving for retirement, paying down debt, saving for college. So the next thing is adequate health insurance. Now, I know this makes sense to a lot of people, and sometimes you have to tell people about this, but for people who don't understand this, for the younger set who don't have decent health insurance, I realize that some people just can't really afford anything more than what they have. But as long as you have something, major medical or some kind of health insurance policy, because what could happen is an injury, a skiing accident or something, or just, you go play volleyball with your friends and break your ankle or whatever. Anything. I mean, an injury could cost you a ton of money and wipe out your savings almost immediately. And that is like a really bad thing if you have financial goals. So you want to have adequate health insurance. That's 5 things right there.